Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into I'm Still Here, a Brazilian film that's, well, it's got some serious Oscar buzz, you know?
It's true.
Yeah, and it's set during Brazil's military dictatorship back in the 1960s. A time of a lot of political, well, turmoil, you could say.
Definitely a turbulent time, yeah.
But this film, what makes it really stand out is how it takes this big historical backdrop and it weaves in this incredibly personal, a moving story. It's about family, resilience, and hope, even.
Right, and it's based on a memoir?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, from 2015.
Yeah.
The son of the main characters wrote it. And the film really focuses on Eunice Paiva. We see things through her eyes.
Interesting. So her husband, Rubens, he's a congressman, right? And he was taken by the regime.
Yeah, disappeared.
But the film, it doesn't focus on him.
Exactly. It's about Eunice's experience, how she navigates this incredibly difficult situation.
That's a really unique angle, I think. It lets us, the viewers, it lets us connect with this Mormon in history in such a personal way. Like, we're right there with her.
Absolutely.
And as the story goes on, we see her change, right? She goes from trying to keep things, well, normal amidst this chaos,
Yeah.
to becoming a real force.
She becomes an advocate.
Yeah, an advocate for her family, for her missing husband.
And Fernanda Torres, who plays Eunice, her performance is it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah, I read about that. Everyone's saying she's going to win awards for this role.
She deserves them.
One thing that really struck me, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but the director, Walter Salles, he uses what looks like home movies, like 16mm film.
Yeah.
It's woven into the story, and I kept wondering, is this real? Is this staged? It made me think about how truth can be, manipulated, especially under a dictatorship.
That's a great observation, I think. That blurring between fiction and reality, it's really effective, especially given the historical context. Like, we're seeing this personal footage, right? These intimate moments, and it makes you feel like you're, almost invading their privacy a bit.
Right, like you're looking into their personal archives.
Exactly.
And then on top of all this, you have these incredible visuals of Rio de Janeiro, the colors, the music, like it's almost celebrating Brazilian culture, even while it's depicting this dark chapter.
Right. It's like Sal is saying that even in the darkest times, there's still beauty, there's still life.
I love that. Yeah. And it kind of brings us to the title, doesn't it? I'm Still Here. It's such a strong statement.
Yeah, so many layers to it.
I mean, on the surface, it's Eunice, right? Her strength, her resilience.
But it also makes you think about legacy, how those we love, even when they're gone, they're still with us in a way.
And that's emphasized even more by the real footage of the Paiva family during the credits.
Oh, you notice that too?
Yeah, it's like their story, it doesn't end with the film, it keeps going.
It connects the history to the present.
Exactly. And speaking of history, this film is, it's made history. First Brazilian film nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars.
It's incredible.
It really is. I wonder, do you think that global recognition, it has to do with the themes? Like family, resilience, those are universal, right?
I think so, definitely. Those themes, they connect with everyone. And I also think the way the story is told through Eunice's eyes, the blend of, the storytelling techniques, it's all very captivating.
Oh, and speaking of captivating, we can't forget Fernanda Montenegro. She plays the older Eunice, and she's royalty in Brazilian cinema. And she worked with Salles before, right, on Central Station.
Exactly. It's like a reunion.
It makes you wonder if casting both Montenegro's mother and daughter was intentional, to emphasize the themes of family legacy.
That's a really interesting thought. It wouldn't surprise me. Salles is a very deliberate filmmaker.
And it's not all been smooth sailing for the film, right?
Yeah.
There was that attempted boycott.
From the far right?
Which, in a way, shows how relevant this story still is today. Yeah, it touches a nerve.
It definitely does. Shows that the legacy of the dictatorship, that conversation, is still very much alive in Brazil.
It makes you think, right, how does I'm Still Here challenge how we see history? How it gives a voice to those who were, silenced during that time?
It's a question worth exploring, for sure. Yeah, it really makes you realize that history, it's not just about, big political movements and all that. It's about people.
Yeah, people living their lives.
Exactly, and their stories and how they were affected by everything that was going on.
And in this case, it's about how they resisted, right? How they kept going, how they kept memories alive, and even found joy amidst all the darkness, really.
Exactly, and the film, it doesn't shy away from the brutality of what happened, during the dictatorship, but it also shows these moments of tenderness, of humor, of life just, continuing.
Yeah, it could have been really heavy, really depressing, but it's not.
Right, it avoids those traps.
There's this sense of hope that runs through it all, I think. This belief in the human spirit.
Yeah, that resilience. And what I find so fascinating is how it manages to be so personal and so political at the same time.
Yeah, it's a family story, but it's also about so much more.
Exactly. It's about fighting against authoritarianism, I guess. And it's about protecting those democratic values.
It really makes you think about what's happening in the world today. We're seeing this rise of authoritarianism in different places.
It's true.
And it makes you realize how easily those freedoms, those rights can be taken away.
And how important it is to speak up, to fight for what's right.
Absolutely. The film is like a reminder, isn't it? That fight for justice, for human rights, it's never really over.
Yeah, it's a constant battle.
And it has to happen on every level, right? Personal,
Yeah.
societal, and I'm still here. It does this in such a subtle way. It doesn't, preach or anything like that.
Right, it's not hitting you over the head with a message.
Yeah, it just invites you to think about these issues through the lens of this family story.
And it's so nuanced, but it doesn't lose any of its emotional impact,
Right, it really makes you feel something.
It's intellectually stimulating and emotionally powerful.
That's a tough balance to strike.
Yeah, it's a testament to Sal's, his skill as a director. He just draws you into the story, makes you care about these characters.
His use of visuals is amazing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The way he uses the archival footage, the close-ups, those wide shots of Rio.
It all comes together to create this really immersive experience.
It's interesting how those different elements, they all work together so well. The archival footage, it grounds you in the reality of it all, right?
Yeah.
And then the more stylized shots, they add that emotional layer.
And the music. We can't forget the music.
Oh, right, the soundtrack, it's so vibrant, so full of life.
It captures the soul of Brazil, really.
And it reminds you, even in the midst of all that oppression, there's still beauty, there's still culture, there's still, that spirit.
Exactly, and the film, it has so much to offer on so many levels. Historical, political, personal, artistic.
It really does. It's a masterpiece, I think.
I agree.
It's been great talking about this with you, really unpacking it all.
Yeah, it's been a good conversation.
So, as we start to wrap up our deep dive, what would you say are the key takeaways here? What should our listeners really remember?
Well, I think the biggest thing is history. It's not just dates and facts in a textbook, it's about people.
Yeah, real people living through it.
Exactly. And I'm Still Here, it reminds us that it's so important to remember those who were silenced, who were marginalized.
To listen to their stories, to make sure their experiences are honored.
This is a film that stays with you,
It really does.
It makes you think, it challenges you, and it encourages you to really look at the world around you and to think critical about what's happening.
What stands out to you the most from our discussion today, from this deep dive into I'm Still Here?
I think for me, it's how the film takes back the narrative,
Yeah.
It shifts the focus away from those who were disappeared to those who were left behind.
Yeah, the families, the loved ones.
Yeah, and it shows how they had to find a way to keep living, to keep loving, to keep hoping, even when faced with this unimaginable loss.
It's really about the strength of the human spirit.
Exactly, and it's a story that deserves to be told and to be remembered.
And it makes you think about, how we engage with history. How we make sure that those voices, those stories aren't forgotten.
Exactly, and it reminds us that every story matters, even the ones that seem, lost or hidden.
Right, like each story adds to the bigger picture.
Yeah, it helps us understand the past more fully.
The film is so well done. It's almost like we're right there with the Paiva family.
Yeah, like you're in their living room with them.
Sharing those moments, the good ones, the hard ones, their search for Rubens.
It's that feeling, that connection that makes the film so powerful, I think.
It's not just, telling you facts and figures.
Right. It's about the emotions, the human experience.
Looking back to that footage, the home movies, it makes you think about how those little pieces of the past, they can tell us so much.
Yeah, like those little fragments, those glimpses into their lives, they hold a certain truth,
Yeah, a truth that maybe the official records don't capture.
Exactly. They offer a different perspective, a more human one.
And like we've talked about, that title, I'm Still Here, It has so many meanings.
Right, it's Eunice, it's the family, and it's even Reuben's, in a way.
Like his presence is still felt through their memories, their actions.
It reminds you that even when someone is gone physically, they can still have an impact, leave a legacy.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. How does this film, how does I'm Still Here, change how we think about the importance of individual stories in history? And how can we make sure those stories aren't lost? What do you think?
It's a question we should all be asking ourselves. And, I encourage everyone to see the film, to form your own opinions, your own interpretations, and let us know what you think. We'll be back soon with another deep dive, but until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.